الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمن من لجأ إليكم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. All together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليكم جميعا يا شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو يحيي ويميت وإليه ترجعون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. How do we revive our spirituality and maintain it in a time when secularism is gaining momentum? Is a very interesting question that some may have, and as interesting as it is, also fundamental to analyze and explain, because these seem to be antithetical concepts that serve as antonyms of one another when it comes to establishing a body and a society. Spiritualism, religion, a doctrine that adheres to divinity, versus, on the other side, secularism, the separation between church and state. As Muslims, we do have the pleasure to live in societies that are open enough to accept a wide range of people with various beliefs. Mind you, the ideal Islamic society is such, and the example is derived during the time of the Holy Prophet and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, where they allow the multiplicity of opinion to be under the true Islamic state. But today, we do not have the Holy Prophet, and we do not have the Imam governing an establishment in order for us to live under a society through the true ideals of the teachings of Islam, Ahlul Bayt. Other people might call for this ridiculous claim of, let's revive the caliphate back. We want a khilafah. When did the khilafah ever give us anything good? It's all filled with bloodshed. Also, if we revive a caliphate, who's going to be at the helm of it? Because by default, a caliphate is governed by a caliph or a khalifa. And the khalifa, according to Quran, is chosen by us or by Allah? By Allah. And so we do not choose who is God's representative. Khilafah does not come from down up. It comes from up, down. Coming from me? No. Quran al-Kareem. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ What? Khalifa. Allah is speaking to whom? Who is He addressing? Adam. I find it very fascinating that before humans were created, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala found it necessary to bring down on an earth a Khalifa when there are no humans around. So how could you tell me that when the Holy Prophet died, it's perfectly okay, there's no Khalifa, and we have to pick one? Moreover, we live in this society now where the Khalifa, there's an abstinence in that regard. So how do we revive our spirituality and maintain it at a time in which secularism is gaining momentum? We have to first understand these two terminologies. What is spirituality? What is a secularistic way of thinking? By beginning with secularism, basically, in general, it's the abstinence of any religious ideal within a governing body. The separation between church and state, meaning the country or the state or the province or the nation does not rule by what they deem is divine law. They rule by what they believe is rational, logical, ethical, and moral. But we all know how problematic that can be. Because for the thousands of years, it was perfectly okay to purchase slaves. They thought that was ethical, they thought that was moral, until the Emancipation Proclamation of Abe Lincoln in the 18th century was able to bring back the rights of these human beings who were treated like property. But for the longest time, that was normal. That was the law. It was perfectly fine. So when we establish our own system, who's to say that there aren't any black dots in it, that there aren't any gaps in it, that there aren't any contradictions of humanity and human rights? We don't know what's good for ourselves, let alone a nation. And so it does make sense that there should be an instruction book, but whose instruction book can we abide by and rely on? We don't understand these books. And who is going to come and interpret them for us? Only the one that can reveal it. That's why those who don't have a living person representing God for them, who will reappear publicly and serve as a leader for all of humanity, are at risk. Because they'll just live this lifestyle of, we just work on what we believe is moral, and that's how we will live in our societies. Yeah, but forever it's been faulty and wrong. Are we just going to play this game of, this is moral today, tomorrow that's not moral, and then it just changes? Why don't we start from day one, where we live a society, where we recognize each other's rights, we uphold humanitarian rights, we give the regulations necessary, and we put forth the consequences necessary from a body in which the Lord who created us understands. But the problem is, we interpret what we think the Lord wants. It would be horrible to live under a society that is governed by a book, let's say, which has animosity for certain groups of people. Then they would be marginalized in that type of society. Where do we see in the lives of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt or the Holy Prophet of Islam in which we had the ideal Islamic society established? So we can take that example and be able to appreciate what a true governing system looks like. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi was the only one, barring the Holy Messenger of Allah, because his establishment was getting established. Until he died, he left us the establishment. Peace and blessings be upon him. So he was teaching society how to live. By the time he died, he gave it to his emissaries and successors, that he directly chose to rule it. Because we have logically a principle, al-a'raf bil-mabda, or al-a'raf bil-shay' ahaqqu bih. The one who knows the most about a concept is more deserving of it. If I come right now to someone who has no idea what an iPhone 8 is, and I go, hey, you can have it and enjoy it, take good control of it. They're not going to be able to use it the way it should be used. They don't know how it works. For anything, they'll just use it as like shades for their eyes when they want to go to sleep. They don't know what that is. Just imagine how silly that would be to gift somebody something they have no clue what it is. Or let's say if you were to go back 100 years ago and you took your phone and you go like, here buddy, take this. And they look at it and they go, what is this sorcery? What is this magic? And all of a sudden you bring the person who invented it and he teaches you how to use it. It would be silly to give the phone or the complicated device to someone who has no idea how to work it, who wasn't there when it was made, who has no clue what the parts are and the components, and how they work, and how to charge it, then give it to the man who actually was there through thick and thin. Likewise, Islam was, from its inception, Amir al-Mu'mineen with the Holy Prophet by the cave, in the cave. Islam, from the get-go, Amir al-Mu'mineen raises his hand in that event of Da'watul Ashira, when the Prophet calls for his family, who's going to aid me? That small little hand was raised by a young boy, and the Rasul looks at him and he says, you will be my Khalifa, you will be my Wazir, and you will be my Wasi after me. And they begin laughing, because they say, look at this young boy, he's going to be a successor to this great man. This is, by the way, accepted from both sides. But how do they defame it? He was young. So Rasulullah was just bringing an example. When he says, you're my Khalifa, okay, you're 12 years old. And so that doesn't necessarily count when he raises his hand. Okay, if prophets can speak in their infancy, don't pick and choose where God's message lies on how old a person can be. Allah, if He wants, can make a prophet at 40, can make a leader at 12, can make a prophet speak in the cradle. It doesn't matter. Don't put age to God's chosen people. When you find Imam al-Jawad, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, sallallahu alayhi, debating the highest scholars at that time, at the age of 9, and destroying every single one of them within Baghdad, it just goes to show that these people are guided by Allah. So don't put an age on God's chosen people. Nonetheless, he was the only one, by the way, in Shi'i history who actually had established a government. No one after him, barring the Holy Prophet, nobody before him. And that was the only time the Imams of Ahlul Bayt had that moment. But let's examine his government and see what the ideal, legitimate Islamic state should look like. The Imam, the second he came into office, the first thing he did was to get rid of any corrupt ruler. He would not tolerate somebody who was corrupt. Number 2, he did something so amazing with a span of 4 years only, while being under 3 civil wars that no ruler in history has done and will do. And the United Nations former Secretary General Kofi Annan affirms to this when he says that the example of Ali ibn Abi Talib is the greatest example for the fairest governor in the history of the world, and the leaders of the nations, particularly the Arab nations, should take his example. Which example? Take the example of him in order to rule a society. Why? Let's just look at the society of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Number 1, all history books say this. All of them. Sunni, Shia, non-Muslim as well. Because this is a historical event. That the citizens under the government of Amir al-Mu'mineen, there were 3 things they had the advantage of no other group of people had. What were they? 3 qualities. Number 1, كانوا يشربون ماء الفرات. Everybody had access to water, specifically the water of the Euphrates River. It was a fresh body of water, especially at that time, very clean. So everybody had access to water. No one complained that they didn't have any water. Everyone had access. وَكَانُوا يَأْكُلُونَ الْبِرَّ. That they would eat good food, that they had access to bread, and all of these foods and basic human rights that every human should deserve. Moreover, كَانُوا يَنَامُونَ فِي الظِّلِّ. And they used to sleep in shades. Ambiguous term, for they all had roofs. Do you know what that means? By the 39th year after Hijrah, months before the Imam was martyred, there was not one person, I want your attention, just to know how brilliant this man was, Salamullahi alayhi, and know why non-Muslims adore him. There was not one person in the 39th year after Hijrah who requested from the Islamic treasury any zakat. Do you know what that means? Understand what zakat is. Person in need, someone that's poor that needs money. Meaning there was not one homeless person by the end of the Khilafah of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Islamic Empire that spans from the far east of Khurasan at the edge of India to the far west of Egypt. All of that because Imam Ali, under 3 civil wars and in 4 years, he lifted poverty. And he's the one who says, if poverty was a man, I would have killed him. Indeed, Ya Al-Hassan, you killed poverty. Everyone had a house. Everyone had food. Everyone had basic human rights, fundamental human rights, irrespective of religion, of denomination, of any sort. In fact, the Imam was so wealthy in his government that they had a surplus of money. Do you know what they used to do with the cash? They would give it to the mushrikeen across the Arab lands. Here, take it, we have too much. This man is so politically literate, economically stable, and he's such a just ruler that we have too much money. come and take the cash. They had so much wealth and food that the imam would order people to go and take hay and reeds and wheat and seeds, place them on the rooftops of their homes and the hills in the distance. Why, ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? He says, so the pass-buyer, someone who passes by the Islamic nation, will notice that not even the birds went hungry under the government of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That is the ideal Islamic state. And he allowed for a plurality of opinion that even contradicted the Islamic way of thinking to exist. If you did not like Islam, by all means. So much so that even the Khawarij, alayhim la'natullah, he let them curse him and he said it's okay. Do not be those who curse. He's fighting in Siffin. Companions are cursing Muawiyah. And the Imam, not cursing, cussing as we would say. Because la'na is different from sab. They were using sab. They were cursing in the form of, they were just bringing statements and insulting him. As deserving as he is, and when you fight the Imam of your time, you want to spill the Imam's blood, you deserve more than just that. But the Imam wants to establish a decorum, that the ideal Muslim doesn't use profanity. And this is a lesson for all of our brothers and sisters, particularly our youth. Cussing and swearing, I'm just going to say it right here, flat out, it's haram. These words, the F-bomb, the B-bomb, the Z-bomb, the Q, whatever bomb there is, they're haram to use, brothers and sisters. When we say fragrance your tongue with the love of the Ahlul Bayt, don't dirty it by coming and using profanity. It's not the sunnah of the Prophet, nor is it the sunnah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, nor is it the practice of any decent human being. You don't have to be Muslim to have a clean tongue. Any human will tell you that profanity is disgusting. Don't speak. What are you, big? You think you're tough when you use big words? No, the contrary. You just bring yourself down. Stop using that profanity. We always say, عَطِّرُوا أَنفَاسَكُمْ, perfume, fragrance your tongue with sending your salutations to the Prophet. Don't dirty it. So let's do it right now. عَطِّرُوا أَنفَاسَكُمْ بِذِكْرِ الصَّلَاةِ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِ مُحَمَّدٍ. You purify that tongue that says, Wa Hussein in Karbala, in Ashura, in Canada, in America. Keep it clean, don't dirty it. You're a Shi'i. If you're going, you know what? By all means swear, cuss, steal, do it all, have fun. But don't call yourself a Shi'i. You can do whatever you want to do, just don't call yourself a Shi'i if it hurts the message of the Ahlul Bayt. Because this message has been hurt so bad. We don't need any more pain. We don't need any more people bringing it down. Be proud that you speak only which is good. The Amir himself would say, speak only when your words are more beautiful than the silence. And so don't do the opposite of that by speaking negative words and representing Islam in such a negative way. We represent Islam the best way, the ideal way, the humanitarianistic way, and the way of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Sallu ala Muhammad. So he allowed people to have their own opinions. If they want to curse, let them curse, so long as they're not harming anybody, so long as they're not hurting anybody, and so long as nobody is being affected, let them do what they want to do. It's okay, it's their own opinion. He walks by the street and he sees an elderly Christian man, and he says, what is this? And they go, it's a Christian man. Amir says, I didn't say, who is this? I said, what is this? They said, it's a Christian man. He says, I didn't say who, I said what? They said, what do you mean? I see poverty. I see a person who you used him when he was young and strong, and now you throw him on the streets? Don't tell me he's Christian or Jewish or even non-Muslim. Is he not a human being? He is. Then take from the treasury, give it to him, money, enough such that he's up on his feet, buy him a home, give him a house, and give him weekly payments. A payment every single week. It's like a retirement fund. And do you know the Imam didn't just stop there? Look at this government. Wallah, that's a place we would like to be. Unfortunately today, we cannot blame people. When you ask them, what's the ideal society? Islamic. Where do you want to live? New York. But you just said, oh, hold on. I understand. Because the examples we see are bad examples. And not to blame anybody or anything, because we don't have an infallible leading these examples. So there are shortcomings, but there are good examples. Good places that are doing a decent job. Of course, nothing is perfect, but they're doing decent jobs. And only, by the way, there are only like a handful of places in the world. And I'm sure you can probably think of where. And the opposite is also true. They may speak of Islam. They may do what they want to do and call themselves Muslimin. But the second they bomb Jannatul Baqiyah, understand what their true intentions were. In any case, the Imam didn't just stop there. He gave rights to Muslims, to non-Muslims. What else could you do? He gave rights to animals. The Imam would not allow for a stray dog to be on the street, starving and running around. He actually collected stray animals. Ibn al-Hadid mentions this in his encyclopedia, that he collected stray animals. Ali ibn Abi Talib, what are you doing collecting stray animals? Animals, dogs, cats, anything that can't defend itself, cannot fend for itself. And he made like the equivalent of like a daycare system, or let's say more like a zoo. But he nonetheless collected these animals that had no place to go, and he would feed them. He would allow for them to live. Even animals, Ya Mohammedhassan, you showed mercy to. May Allah bless the ones on Karbala who not even a drop of water were given. And no mercy was shown. And no rahmah was expressed. When you show this to animals, let's see how they treated your holy household. But that musibah is coming, inshallah. So the point is, how do we revive our spirituality in a time in which secularism is very much alive? To note, you, alhamdulillah, should be grateful you don't live under an incident where now you have a religious body and you're forced to follow a certain way. So that's one. So this concept of my spirituality is at stake or at risk is a bit faulty, but nonetheless, the topic is very fascinating. My spirituality is, how do I revive it? Number one, brothers and sisters, don't do the bare minimum. Don't do just the bare minimum. When I, as a Muslim, am obligated to pray and fast and give what I owe as far as money is concerned, and go perform pilgrimage, do more than that. Don't give the bare minimum. Make sure that in your prayer, if when you're about to conclude, try it. This is a practical example. Try this, honestly, if you want to see how your spirituality can be revived. And in a secular environment or in a Muslim environment or wherever in the world, we all need this type of advice and practical example. That at your prayer, when you are praying, the last sajda, don't just conclude, Subhana Rabbil A'la wa bihamda, Allahu Akbar. Prolong it. Ya waliya al-afiyah, as'aluka al-afiyah. عافية الدين والدنيا والآخرة بمحمد وعترته الطاهرة يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الذليل الضعيف يا خفي الألطاف نجنا مما نحضر ونخاف بمحمد وآله الأشراف. Prolong that sujood. You're doing more than just the bare bone minimum. I am praying, I'm doing what's mandatory upon me, and I don't feel anything. Maybe don't just do the minimum. Do more than that. Don't skip the qunut. Do more than that. After your prayer, go down to sajda and say Alhamdulillah, 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 or Shukr Lillah 3 times. Do you know the ajr of what that is and what that's like? According to the books of narration, it's as if your salah was multiplied by 1,000. Why would you ever miss that? Moreover, make sure that you conclude it with a tasbihatu zahra. When you do that tasbih, understand what you're doing. Which leads us to a second point. Know what you're doing. When you uphold these things, have at least an understanding as to what you're doing. Prayer, tasbih, why and what on earth am I doing? When I pray, I have to know because I'm going to be praying forever. So what am I doing? What are the symbolic messages of just the actions of prayer? Why sujood? Why ruku'? Why takbirah? When you understand these things, salah becomes more genuine. In so doing, reviving your spirituality. Have you ever asked yourself the question, why takbiratul ihram like that? Why not the other way around? Or why our hands to our sides? Why sujood this manner? The ulama provide wonderful explanations and expositions in regards to these certain actions and these gestures. For example, the takbirah. When you say, usalli salatul, for example, dhuhr. Qurbatan ilallah ta'ala, and the arms are to be raised to the ears like that, but they're meant to be swift. This is a gesture symbolizing, Ya Allah, I am beginning my prayer. Everything is behind me. And that reflects that action and the intention. Allahu Akbar, everything is behind me with that gesture. Next time you go and pray, implement that. Or at least think about that for a second. The prayer becomes a little bit more genuine now. Or not more genuine, but more understandable. And then you move forward to ruku'. Why am I arching or bowing down? What's the point? Why can't I just drop to sujood? It's as if you're saying, Ya Allah, my most vulnerable part, my head, is yours. And I expose my neck to you. And I give it to you, Ya Allah. In that state in which I say, Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamdih. Glorified is the Lord, the great, and all things to Him. Because of that, I expose to you my head and my neck. It's all yours. And this concept is understood. When you control the head, you control the entire body. Control me, Ya Allah, in my state of ruku'. Think of it that way. Then the salah will be able to help you revive yourself. Or when you go to sujood and you place your head down on that blessed soil, the turba. And what blessed soil to prostrate on other than turbat al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. The ajr is multiplied according to our imams. And this was a custom that was inaugurated by Imam Zainul Abidin salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, in which sallu ala Muhammad wa in which the Imam, when he returns to Karbala, he takes with him parts of the land surrounding the grave of his holy father. And he recognizes that there's the spiritual energy. I take it with me. I don't want to miss it when I'm in Medina now. So I take it. And he would only do sujood on it. Now how about when I do sujood on other things besides turbat al-Imam al-Hussein? Salah is still accepted. But the turba started with Imam Zainul Abidin, the fourth Imam of Ahlul Bayt. And that's where we owe our turba, our prostration to. Have you ever thought about that? Why is he called Sayyidus Sajidin, Zainul Abidin? He began the teaching of praying on turbat al-Imam al-Hussein. Whenever they question you, why do you pray on rocks? My fourth Imam did it, and I won't lose a second of sleep if you have a problem with it. Because my Imam is above you and everybody else and me combined. And so that teaching began with him. When you get to sujood, my head on that soil is a symbolic gesture that I was made from this soil. When you get up from sujood, Allahu Akbar, you go back down, you return back. When I got up, it's as if that was my life after I was created from this soil, from clay. And the time between me getting up and going back down, how long does it take? 2 seconds? A second? Was like my life. How short was it? Going back down to the turba is me being buried again. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Back to the dirt of which I was created from. And that time span between the moment I was in contact with it reflects my life. How short was it? A second or two? That's how fast life will go by. So stop bickering, arguing, complaining. It'll go by quick and it'll leave you. And you can't take anything with you when you go. No car, no money, and no watch, except the amount of ajr you gave back, the good deeds that you did, and the blessings that Allah bestowed upon you that you earned. By doing that, brothers and sisters, understanding these gestures, we'll be able to revive and maintain our spirituality in these times. And the last concept, the last element that we can do to revive our spirituality, wherever we are, in a secularistic society, in a communistic society, whatever it may be, we should always try our hardest to reflect. Brothers and sisters, reflection is of the utmost importance. Dare I say, meditation. Take some time. Think. Coming from me? Never. Who am I? Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullahi alayhi. Inna sa'at tafakkur khayrun min ibadat 70 sana. 1 hour of tafakkur, reflecting, thinking, meditating. And it is meditating because how can you think with all these distractions? So you have to seclude yourself. Is greater than what? 70 years of worship. And all some of us do is just the bare bone minimum. Take advantage of these opportunities. What else was Rasulullah doing when he would make his way to Ghar Hira, Jabal al-Nur, during the month of Rajab, for an entire month, from his 20s until he announced his prophethood and began it. For 20 years, the Holy Prophet would go to this mountain during the month of Rajab and just do what? Just sit there? thinking, reflecting. When you're on that mountain, may Allah bless you to go to Mecca al-Mukarramah, Ilahi Ameen, you notice it has an upscale view of society down below. And from the distance you can probably see the Kaaba. Imagine what the Holy Prophet was thinking when he sees his society that he grows up in, and where his loved ones grew and his loved ones died. It makes you think. And this is the sunnah of the Prophet. He's been doing it for 20 years. The only people doing it are monks, sitting and humming and reflecting. We as Muslims should take time off and do that as well. Reflect, think, contemplate. And if you can't do it in your area, travel. The Quran says that قُلْ سِيحُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقِ. Say, travel across the earth and notice how Allah created man and womankind and humanity. Allah is encouraging you to go travel. If you live in a society for so long, wallah, I have never seen more narrow-minded human beings than those who live in their street only. Only, they don't leave. Not they don't leave their country. Not they don't leave their province or their state. Not they don't leave their city. They don't leave their street. Why would I leave? My school is right there. My mosque is right there. Hookah lounge is probably right there too. And my gym is right there. I would never leave. No, get out of your circle. Get out of your little bubble. Try and see the world. Go observe how it was all created. وَانْظُرْ كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقِ. Look at how Allah created all these creations. It'll open your mind. It'll expand your horizons. In so doing, allowing your spirituality to be revived and the momentum to be increased. That will help us establish this, brothers and sisters, and irrespective of wherever we may live, it'll allow us to be steadfast in our ruhaniyya, our spirituality, and in our iman. I'd like to share with you one story by one of our ulama that ties into this concept of not doing the bare bone minimum and always reflecting. One of the most grand scholar within our school is Al-Allam-al-Majlisi. Al-Allam-al-Majlisi, of course, the famous compiler of the encyclopedia Bihar al-Anwar. Famous in regards to how many volumes it has. 114 volumes. Some editions have more or less, but roughly 114 ahadith from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt and the Holy Prophet. He did a service to at-tashayyu' by compiling this. Now, to mention, it's not a sahih book. In the school of Ahlul Bayt, we do not have a sahih book except the Holy Quran. He even mentions this in the beginning, epilogue of Bihar al-Anwar, which he says, I put traditions in here for the sake of compiling them. Don't take them all as true, because there are contradictions. I just wanted a place to store them. A good portion of it is probably authentic, sure, but don't take everything as authentic and reliable, just for the sake of compiling. Now, Al-Shaykh Al-Kulayni, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, when he compiled Al-Kafi, he was indeed under the impression that Al-Kafi was all sahih. And then, alhamdulillah, in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we progress in our thinking and methodologies. We were formerly an akhbari school, a scripturalistic school that only relied on the ahadith only, and then we converted through the benefits and the participation of various ulama of the like, such as Muhammad Baqir al-Wahid, al-Bahbahani, at the time of Sheikh Yusuf al-Bahrani, when we converted from a scripturalistic school to an usuli school. Meaning that we used to rely only on scriptures for our sources, then we started to rely on ulama, consensus, ijma' and ijtihad. This was all pushed forth, and the evolution continues to go and flow. And that being said, it shows that there is room for learning and expanding our understandings. And you're not confined to books that were written 1,000 years ago, or ulama, 4 of them, or how many of them, thousands of years ago, and you can't formulate your own opinions. No. School of Ahlul Bayt, alhamdulillah, we have rationale and logic. If we see something contradicting the behavior of Rasulullah, we throw it against the wall. My Prophet, for example, would never, ever, never frown at a blind man. But because it's found in my source here, I have to accept it. Who cares? It's contradictory to the Quran. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You have the most sublime morals and akhlaq. That contradicts akhlaq. But alhamdulillah, we don't have a book where we're liable to everything that it says. Otherwise, we'd be in trouble. We have people who search, research, academically, ulama of the highest caliber, Ayatollah al-Khoyi rahmatullahi ta'ala put a lot of emphasis on this in this regard, authenticating traditions and narrations. And now we realize that this is the power of the Ahlul Bayt when they left us behind ulama. When our 12th awaited Imam went into occultation, may Allah hasten his reappearance. I would like to add a side method as to how we could also revive our spiritualities. But before it, I'd like to continue on the topic of Al-Allama al-Majlisi very fast, inshallah. He was a wealthy man. He compiled the book, and he was also had a position under the government at the time. He was very well established in his time, in his era. When he died, his son saw him in a dream. Allama al-Majlisi, he saw him. He appeared in his son's dream, and his son saw his dad in Jannah. He explicitly says, whenever I see my dad lift his hand, he grabs fruit. He's relaxing. And I ask him, what's the thing that got you to heaven? Is it the 80 or so years you prayed Jama'ah in the masjid? His dad said, no. Is it compiling this book, Bihar al-Anwar? He said, no. He's like, what was it? He said, one day I came back from the market and I purchased an apple. And I saw in front of me a lady who was walking in front of me as well. And she had a baby she was holding like this. And so the baby sees behind, because the baby faces this way as the mother's walking forward. She sees Al-Allama al-Majlisi holding this apple. And the baby begins to cry because she's hungry. And so Al-Allama's heart breaks and he's like, here, take it. And he was quiet about it too. He says, take the apple. And he's quiet, he didn't even tell the mom. And the child had a smile on his face. He says, the angels informed me that got me into heaven. This small act. Brothers and sisters, don't neglect the small things that we call small. Tasbih, do it. Do it, brothers and sisters. Dua, recite it. Sujood, prolong it. That revives your spirituality, brothers and sisters. Make sure you do that and remember who you're doing it for. Allah, Rasulullah, and the Ahlul Bayt. Have that remembrance, and inshallah ta'ala, Allah will help you gain that momentum. Inshallah ta'ala. And make sure you represent yourself in that way. And if you're not around to represent yourself, have others represent you. Just like how we have, inshallah, on a night like this, we want to make sure the message of Imam al-Hussein is represented properly. And when we ask people, who is your role model? Muslim Shi'i. Aba Abdullah is my role model. And if you ask, let's say if you were to ask, hypothetically speaking, Aba al-Fadl al-Abbas, who is your role model? Aba al-Fadl will say, Aba Abdullah. And if you were to ask Sayyida Zainab, who's your role model? She would say, Aba Abdullah. And if you were to ask Ali al-Akbar, who's your role model? He would say, Aba Abdullah. And if you were to ask Zuhair, Abis, Habib, Nafi' bin Hilal al-Jamali, who is your role model? They would say, Aba Abdullah. But if you were to ask Aba Abdullah, who's your role model? Who say Al-Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba. Brothers and sisters, we dedicate 10 days for Imam al-Hussein. Dedicate one for the poor man in Baqi'. It's like the Imam looks at his brother. The poet says in Barzakh, is it fair that I have a gold dome over my grave and you have a rock? Is it fair that millions visit me? And when people come to visit you, they are told, move, make your way. Don't stand here too long. Is it fair that that happens to you, my dear brother? Brothers and sisters, dedicate some time. Al-Hassan al-Mujtaba. He was Imam Hussein's role model. Whatever you love, and you're insanely in love about it, you'll love everything associated with it. The one role model Imam had after his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, was al-Mujtaba, salawatullahi wa salam alayhi. And of course, we cannot do justice to any of the Imams, but we try our best. Imam al-Hassan, just to mention very quickly, this isn't the musibah, so I'd like your attention and I'd also like the lights on for a moment. The Imam, as he was poisoned, no, I'd like them on, inshallah. We're going to get to the musibah, inshallah, if you don't mind. As he was poisoned, do you know the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, all of them who were poisoned, they died later on. So Imam Ali was struck, poisoned by the sword that was poisoned. He died 3 days later. And every single Imam died later. It was only Imam al-Hassan who, because of the severity of the poison, died on the spot. That's how powerful it was. And the Imam would be puking his own blood into a bowl. And he sees that his brothers are next to him, Abbas and Hussein. He says to Abu Abdullah, cover the ball. Why? He says, because I hear Zainab is coming and I don't want her to see. I don't want her to see this situation. When, I don't know what to say now. You didn't want Sayyidah Zainab to see your blood. Could you imagine what she felt when she saw his son Al-Qasim and his blood spilled? If only you saw that event, Ya Hassan alayhi salam. And then when they went to bury him, they brought him to Masjid al-Nabawi until she shot arrows at him, prevented him from being buried next to Rasulullah, his grandfather, saying, don't let him in my house, get him out. They were forced to bury him in Baqi'. Abu Abdullah looks at his brother and he puts him into the grave and his cheek touches the dirt, and that was the last time he saw his brother. In the day of Ashura, he had his manifestation appear and come to the Imam. The manifestation of Hassan al-Mujtaba, Al-Qasim. This 14-year-old boy, brilliant, valiant, charming, eloquent, beautiful, knowledgeable, and the only memory for Abu Abdullah regarding Imam al-Hassan. Imam al-Hassan gave 6 sons on the day of Ashura. One of them survived, and that's Hassan Muthanna, although his arms were severed. And it's a sad story when you read how they all died, Abdullah, how he died. But Al-Qasim is his night. He looks at his father, and he says to his father, "Oh my father, allow me to go and fight, and I want to represent you, oh my father." So he goes to his uncle Imam al-Hussein, and he asks his beloved uncle, "My beloved uncle, allow me to fight. Allow me to represent my father who is not here to fight for you, and allow me to die for you, and allow me to represent him on this day." Imam al-Hussein was hesitant to send his beloved nephew. "You're the only memory I have." The Imam replies to him, "My beloved nephew, and how do you see death? When I send you to go and fight, how is death like in your eyes?" Al-Qasim gives that powerful reply, "My beloved uncle, dying for you is sweeter than honey." Imam al-Hussein brings to him the turban of Imam al-Hassan, and he gives him the sword. And Al-Qasim goes to the battlefield and he begins to say, "I am Al-Qasim, son of Al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, and I am here to defend the message of Al-Mustafa, the grandfather of Hussein, and defend his call on this day." Al-Qasim begins to fight like the valiant warrior of which he was, cutting through the enemy line. And the enemies begin to say that we couldn't attack him because his face كأنه القمر في ليلة تمامه وكماله was like the moon with all its glory and its nur, until they surrounded him and Al-Qasim's shoe broke and he went down to tie it. You know, when he bends his head down to fix his shoe, his head is exposed, just like how we mentioned in ruku'. When you do ruku', you expose your neck, the most sensitive part of your body, to Allah. Al-Qasim exposed his neck to the enemies of Islam, and when he did that, a la'in came and struck him on his head. Do you know what Al-Qasim yelled when he was struck? He didn't say "Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah." No, he said something that hurts the heart. "Amma aghithni adrikni ya Hussein." Uncle, come and help me. Come and aid me. You can imagine how much pain he's going through when he calls, "Help me." Hussein makes his way to Al-Qasim and he kills the enemies that killed him. And when he looks at Al-Qasim, he begins to say how terrible it is for an uncle to respond to his nephew and he's not able to help, or how terrible it is when you call me for help and I am of no avail to you. They say from how badly they did beat Al-Qasim down and slashed him, Abu Abdullah had to actually collect his body from part and piece to piece. He picks up the lifeless body of Al-Qasim. He takes him to the tent of his mother Ramla and he places him down. Do you know who's next to him in the tent? The lifeless body of Ali al-Akbar. Layla is sitting looking at Akbar. Ramla is sitting looking at Qasim, the shining moon. And they are not crying, they're staring at the bodies. As-Sayyida Zainab alayha salam comes and she says, Hussein, please move and leave the tent. Why, Zainab? Because the mothers want to cry over the bodies, but they're too embarrassed to cry over you while you are here. They don't want to show you any more sadness. As soon as Imam al-Hussein left the tent, Ramla threw herself on the body of Qasim, beginning to say, my beloved Habibi Qasim. Oh Ramla, you throw yourself on the body of Qasim. Who was there on the body of Hussein other than Shimr ibn Dhul Jawshan? On the chest of Hussein, no one came to him except Shimr, la'natullahi alayh. You throw yourself on Akbar Layla. Who threw himself on Hussein? Only that la'een when he severed the head of Sibt al-Hussein. Who threw himself on Hussein? Only the man who put the head of the Imam and held it high to the sky for all of those to see. Oh mothers of Karbala, where was the mother of Imam al-Hussein? Sayyida Zahra is watching, and every time they hit Imam al-Hussein, she begins to hit herself on the head saying, Whoa, Husseina! Ma'tam al-Hussein. Wa Hussein.